A pilot friend told me he's been having signal issues with analog FPV, and as a long-time analog user, I had to share my thoughts. Recently, I actually ran into a similar issue during a long-range test with this drone. I was on channel R8 and at around 4 to 5 kilometers out, the video started showing heavy black and white interference lines. There were no obstacles, no mountains, and no obvious interference around. Unfortunately, I only had one long-range battery, so that one test was all I got. But the drone still managed to push through the interference and make it back. After landing, I powered it off and noticed that even the static screen still had those dry patterns. So I looked around and saw a few DJI drones flying nearby. I was on R8, and many DJI systems operate coils to that frequency range. On top of that, their bandwidth is relatively wide, which can easily cause interference. So for long range, I recommend using a 1 or even lower L-band channels. Before takeoff, power off your quad and check the static screen for interference. If the static looks clean and consistent without strange lines, your RF environment is likely good. Then you're good to fly. Another question was about signal diffraction. In reality, whether it's digital or analog, once you have terrain blocking the signal, performance will drop. That's why route planning is critical. We've covered how to avoid terrain blockage in previous episodes. If there's no interference and no obstruction, but your signal is still bad, then it's time to check your receiving setup. Most of the time, that's your goggle receiver. If your goggles don't support swapping modules, consider getting an external analog receiver connected via the AV input to improve reception. If you can use modules, go for diversity or fusion receivers for better performance. There are plenty of reviews comparing different receivers. Finally, let's talk about antennas. For long range, use a directional patch antenna plus an omni antenna. Keep the patch antenna pointed at your drone, and your signal should stay solid. The omni antenna covers you nearby, even when the drone flies behind you. For freestyle or racing, you usually don't need a patch. 2 omni antennas are enough. Set them at an angle to create better coverage. If one antenna hits a dead zone, like when the drone is directly overhead, the vertical one might struggle, but the other antenna will pick it up just fine. And about diffraction, I personally don't see strong diffraction. If a few trees block it, signal usually drops. In that case, it could be hardware issues with your VTX or receiver. Then troubleshoot step by step. Swap VTX, antennas, goggles, and receiver. You'll eventually find the root cause. Overall, aside from weaker interference resistance, analog FPV is actually quite stable and consistent in performance.